Hello, everyone. Welcome to KFC SuperCoach 2023. AFL SuperCoach is open for the season. I'm Al Payton, absolutely rapt to be back into it for another year. And I'm joined on this video for day one by JD from Fantasy Take TV over on YouTube. So this is actually part two of a two-part video. We've just done part one on JD's channel. So go over and check that out, Fantasy Take TV. And they've got heaps of great preseason KFC SuperCoach content to check out as well. I think JD did. I watched one of your Defenders Masterclass, which went for about an hour and 15 minutes or something, runs through all the defenders you might ever think about picking in SuperCoach this year. So got a lot of notes out of that. So heaps of good content and all through the year. The guys are putting that out as well. But so JD actually, we did a bit of a discussion about how SuperCoach works and some of the changes from last year. And JD was grilling me on that. And then I think I'm going to handball back to him to take the sort of interviewer role again to run through some of the changes for this year.
Yes, I am very excited because we are going to talk through the 2023 changes, what's being made and edited to the game. And for those that follow me on Twitter, I've already asked a couple of questions out into the nether, hoping that I'd get an answer. And I'm going to get an answer about 7 hours early on everyone else, which probably isn't a big competitive difference, but it is very exciting for me. So Al, I don't know what the changes are, but I'm going to start with the ones that are at least weighing top of mind for me, and then we can go into some of the other weird and wonderful additions being added onto the game this year. So firstly, people have been wondering, the bye rounds, Gold Coast and Geelong, is that going to be best 18 or is it still going to be best 22? Because if it's best 22, players like Touk Miller, Tom Stewart, much less appealing than if it's best 18. So what's the verdict from the team?
Well, I think I've got in my very early team, I think I've got Tom Stewart and Touk in there, which might give you a heads up that it is going to be best 18 scoring in round 13. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it came down a lot to just keeping it as simple as possible, because if you went best 18 for, round 12, then back to best 22, then back to best 18, and yeah, I mean, the buys are kind of hard enough to navigate as it is. So we thought just simpler to keep it best 18 all the way through for those 4 rounds. And then so that means you also have 3 trades available if you've got them for each of those 4 rounds as well. So that's something else too, which hopefully will help. But yeah, it'll add to the strategy for how we play through the year, and also, as you say, how we pick our starting teams. You know, might look at especially those Gold Coast and Geelong players in a different light.
Now, that is great news. I think it makes a lot more friendly to navigate the buys, and also does make some of those players a little bit more selectable. So very excited for that change. The second big one, and we covered this in part one, is that we don't expect boosts and trades to be unwound from what we've seen, just given the success of the previous year. But we are getting another round this year, and I calculated it's currently about 1.5 trades per round that we get at the moment. And so I could have realistically seen you guys say, no new trades, 1 additional trade, 2 additional trades with this new round. What did the team decide, and how did you land on that decision?
So the decision is 1 more trade, so from 35 last year up to 36, and it's basically based on that calculation that you talked about. I suppose we kind of rounded down to 1 extra trade to account for that extra round, and also, yeah, to help with that, if you want to be able to have 3 trades available for each of those bye rounds, I suppose having 1 extra might help with that, to have 1 in the bank to potentially use as, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be good. Whether you've got any early thoughts, I'd be curious to hear. But certainly, I'm sure people will be talking about it during the preseason, and as we get into the year, how we, you know, because the buys are even a little bit later this year. So are we holding back to try and finish our teams then, or is, you know, what the tactics are going to be? But yeah, so overall 36 trades for the year, which is 1 more than we had last year.
Perfect. Yeah, no, more trades the better. I'm totally on track with that now. I would have been thrilled if there was 2, but I'll take 1. Yeah, more trades the better. Okay, that's great. Next, I was going to jump into SuperCoach Plus. We saw a lot of great changes to that last year, as we've already covered. Are there additional changes being made, tweaks, additions?
Yeah, definitely. There's quite a lot, actually. So a couple of them, people who've been playing SuperCoach, KFC SuperCoach BBL might have noticed these have already been in operation. And one which I really like is in Coach's Choice. You can filter now by top 1%, 5%, or 10% of teams. So, yeah, so if you know that, you know, sometimes is it all that useful to know that 60% of the comp has picked Jacob Hopper in their team? But if you can filter it down and see, I suppose this will only come in after, you know, we start playing. But if you know the top 1%, 95% of them have got this guy, then, you know, that maybe tells you a bit more. So, and it's probably even more useful as the season goes on, as as those top players sort of start to become really clear and separate themselves from the pack a little bit. So that you can see that in BBL already, and that will come in for AFL and NRL this year. There's also when you can when you're making trades or looking at players, and you can filter by team or position or anything. Now there's a buy round filter has been added there as well, so you can just filter out. Especially if you are looking to make a trade, I'm just going to trade in someone coming off their round 13 buy or whatever it might be. You can isolate those guys with that filter, so that'll be a nice little tool that we can use. The trade assist last year came in where it just automatically picked 2 guys from your team and said this is the best trade you can make for the round. And a lot of that was based on the data of who else was being traded. And this year that's been sort of even upgraded, I guess, so that you can name who you want to trade out or trade in, and then Trade Assist will actually make a suggestion based on that particular player. So, if it's time for me to trade out Jacob Hopper, then it'll say, well, this is who you should trade him to. So, it'd be interesting to see that in operation during the year. And there's lots of other little things. Probably another one that, was great last year, that live scoring came in for SuperCoach Plus subscribers. So that had always been there for like Herald Sun or Masthead subscribers. But it was sort of a weird thing that I think a lot of people didn't necessarily see it on the site. So one thing that we've done is really, and people will notice it a lot more this year, is live scoring popping up in a lot more places. So again, playing KFC SuperCoach BBL, you notice now, even if you just log into the game and you've got your team screen open, if it's during a round, you'll see the live scores and they'll tick up live during the game. So even last year we had a few things like that, but it might take a little while for them to update, whereas these have been really live. So I think that'll be really good. It'll be much better live experience, and for all players too, not just SuperCoach Plus. The home screen on SuperCoach will be updated so that it's much more of a live experience during a round, and you can just see all the key info that is happening live and how your league matchups are tracking and all those sort of things. So they've put a lot of work into making it a much better live experience, and just the overall site. I think I mentioned in part 1 that a lot of work goes on to what's happening behind the scenes just to make things happen quicker and easier, and navigation has been totally updated. So the old burger menu, I think, has been farewelled. So you should be able to just get, you don't have to go through 2 or 3 screens to get to your leagues or anything like that. It's all just right there at your fingertips. That's how it's all hopefully will work. So it'd be good to hear the feedback from people on that one. But yeah, that's something that I think will just make the game more enjoyable and just easier. You don't want to be fiddling around with, especially you're on an app trying to make a trade before lockout. You want to be able to get everything you need straight away. So that's probably some of the big changes in the classic form of the game anyway.
Oh, that's really great. I love the idea of being able to start to fill out here are the kind of trades I'm thinking about, and then ask for kind of help or assistance, which I'm worried will make me a little bit more redundant as a content creator, but it sounds like a great change for Plus. And yeah, some of the stuff around like resilience, speed, and kind of agility of getting the live scoring and those features and being able to set more places is great. And I love the coaches percentage ownership edition. One of my first videos when I started and wasn't very good was talking about how coaches ownership percentage, probably not the great metric, because you have a lot of people that might be playing their own version of classic or like don't take it very seriously. And if you're trying to compete at the top end, it's not necessarily the best metric, especially if you're trying to learn what picks made people end up in the top 1%, 5%, whatever it is. So being able to drill down on that and get that through SuperCoach Plus, was it? That's really cool, and definitely adds, I think, a lot of value to those that were thinking about purchasing Plus this year. That's really nice. All right, let's. You mentioned that those were some of the big changes for Classic. Is there anything else that's being added or changed in the Classic game?
One thing that is on the list that we got sent. So I haven't actually seen this yet. So I'll be curious to learn as much as anybody else, but it says here all new notification and chat system with more live notifications. So when you've been invited into a league, or you've earned an achievement, or you've got unread messages in any of your leagues, there'll be a notification system to ping you, so there's action happening in KFC SuperCoach. And really, when I saw that, my first question was, oh, does this mean we'll be able to send out editorial? Because really, I'm in the editorial side of things. Can we do editorial notifications, which is something I've always wanted to be able to do, but just technically it's never really been possible to. And the classic example being last year, Stephen Cornelio is a laid out. He's in 80% of teams. And a lot of people just miss that news because unless you were on Twitter or something, in the 10 minutes before the game, you wouldn't have even known that had happened. So, if you could get an alert. So I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen this year, but it seems like the mechanics are being set up to potentially allow that kind of thing to happen. So some more discussions have to be had because I think a lot of these are just sort of automatically triggered within the game, whereas this would have to be more of a manual process. But I'd love to get something like that set up as well. So that's a little bit of a wait and see. But yeah, I like the idea of having more of these alerts and notifications just generally throughout the game.
No, that's great. You're right. Some of these changes you only understand if you're watching the game or you're literally on Twitter hitting refresh, or if you're in a chat group that's pinging you. So being able to get some of those notifications through the game, I think will make it a lot friendlier and a lot easier to keep track of those. Now, one of the changes that was made last year that we didn't talk about was there was more content creators that were able to be added to leagues and some other famous people, but I didn't get asked for a headshot this preseason. So I don't know. I think you might guys have a little bit more work to do before you push 2023 live, but maybe we can work on that for next year.
I've been getting a lot of messages from Abdul campaigning very heavily to get into that section of the game. So there's a lot of competition there.
Oh, I have no doubt. Take that as tongue-in-cheek, please. All right, let's talk about draft a little bit. What other changes are we going to see in draft this year to help expand that side of the game?
Yeah, well, I mentioned people who watch part one that Pete Janklowski over at Virtual Sports is a massive draft player, so he's always adding new features to the draft to make it more playable and interesting and exciting. And there's another list this year just to run through a few of them. Keeper leagues now roll over automatically each season, which they haven't until now. The commissioner still has the option to replace anyone who wants to drop out by inviting a new player to the league. Commissioners can also switch on trading right through the finals and through the off-season as they like, if they like, as well as being able to complete team-to-team trades in the preseason and ahead of the live draft. So, yeah, if you're right into your draft and your keeper leagues, that would be a pretty cool feature.
Huge updates for keeper leagues.
Yeah, and commissioners can also set maximum number of players that you can keep. So a lot of this is around sort of customization, and you can really set things exactly how you want to do it. And commissioners can now turn on emergencies and select how many if you want to do that in your league. If you don't, that's fine.
That's nice.
But the option is there. You can also choose now to have a reduced scoring system over the bye rounds, and you can choose however many players that is. So I guess it depends on the size of the teams that you're running. But if it's best 10 scorers or best 8 or best 15, whatever, you can set that for your league over the buys. You can also, commissioners can now pause a running live draft, which I think is a pretty big thing, which will help a lot of people. And another cool little feature is that you can also, for anyone taking part in the draft, you can set your pre-draft rankings based on average draft position. So at the moment, it's just sort of default by sort of last year's average. But as we know, that doesn't always dictate, the order priority who you want to pick in the draft. But yeah, it's really handy to be able to just see, where guys are going in other drafts, especially, people who are getting in and absolutely love this format of the game. That'll give you a pretty good steer if, someone like a Taranto or a Hopper maybe is a good example that, obviously if you're just using the default based on last year's averages, he's going to be way down. But then, okay, so I think he should move up the order, but where should he slot in? That'll be a pretty handy tool to at least see what other people are doing.
I can definitely tell that Pete loves his draft. He probably plays it in other codes as well, because those are some great quality of life additions for those that are either managing or just want to play either keeper or kind of 1 year draft. Those all sound really good, and they'll make a huge difference in just how easy it is to play and run those leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier, that the draft's becoming more popular. I think Classic's always going to be the number one here. That's just the way that sort of fantasy is run in Australia. That's the format that everybody has got into and really bought into and loves. But draft is just sort of quietly building in the background every year. And I've had a lot of fun with it last year. So I would recommend people just jump in and have a go, have another team running in the background. And it always can be nice if your main SuperCoach team is maybe not doing quite as well as you might have hoped. You've got a draft one to fall back on, and you can make a lot more creative rage trades and things in there as well.
Yeah, some more interesting sit-start decisions as well, and you can pick
Yeah,
more of
exactly.
your home favorite players as well and cheer them on in those types of leagues. So, no, the easier that game is made to play and run, I think the more people you find dabble in both classic and draft going forward as well. That's really great, and especially if the navigation to those formats is easier than it has been in the past. We've covered so much already, Al. Is there anything else in terms of updates or changes that are being made for the year ahead that everyone should be aware of before they jump in and make their teams for the 2023 season?
I think we've covered the main things. Yeah, I mean, that navigation I think is going to be a big one. That's just you sort of hopefully in a way won't notice it. Everything will just run smoother and just be easier. And one thing that I must admit it was on my little wish list every year that I'd put in, and seems like will be part of the changes, is that I always found the little button to create or join a league was always just so tiny, and you had to go through about 3 screens to find it. But now it's going to be really front and center because I think that's obviously a big part of the fun of playing KFC SuperCoach for a lot of people. So hopefully make that easier. And just everything hopefully will just run quicker and smoother, and we can worry more about our players and what they're doing, and not so much about what the site's doing. So one of those things that if you're not noticing it so much, then it's a good thing.
Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure joining you and kind of learning about the changes for the game ahead. I would suggest anyone that's an avid listener, fan, SuperCoach player that has suggestions and ideas to put them in the comments below, just so there's a list of things ready to go for years ahead. But Al, is there anything you wanted to say? Sign off. It's your channel after all. I'm just a guest here before we log off and make some teams for 2023.
Yeah, and absolutely. No, I think thank you for it was JD's idea to have this video, and I think it's been great. And just to mention that the community out there is just really, it's the best part of KFC SuperCoach, and the preseason is, let's be honest, is the most fun part of it too, because
before everything goes off the rails.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have to start, really making compromises and things like that. So everyone's ideas are great at this time of year, and I love hearing and part of me hearing them all. So the content creators that are out there just do a fantastic job, and we're really lucky to have those guys who are just love talking about KFC SuperCoach, and I certainly get a lot of great tips from you guys and everybody else out there. So thank you to everyone who's doing that, and we try and promote all these other. I don't see it as too much of a competition. We want everybody to. If SuperCoach is going great and everybody's talking about it, that's a huge win for us. So really happy for everybody to do that. And if you're thinking of doing some content, I think JD had a great Twitter thread a few weeks ago about some tips about how to go about doing that, which was fantastic. And the other thing, is just totally to agree with you to, people leave their comments, because, obviously we're probably Twitter's the main forum, but we do really like to hear the feedback. Tell us what you think of the changes when you get a chance to have a look around the site, because that's how we make the game better. We all play it and we love it, so we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But it's an amazing site and platform. Really, there's just so much in there, and sometimes someone will just suggest an idea that's like, why did we never think of that? And as you say, sometimes things can be trickier to implement than they seem, but sometimes it's just a matter of we hadn't thought of that. So we definitely listen to what people say. Unfortunately, we can't do everything that people want. So hopefully people don't get the wrong impression that we're not listening, because we do take all that stuff on board. So we definitely encourage people to share their thoughts and ideas, and just be part of it. And I guess maybe hopefully if you watch this video on part 1 as well, it'll give people an understanding of how it all works a little bit behind the scenes. And if something doesn't happen straight away, there's probably a good reason for it. So hopefully people can understand that too. But we love to hear what everyone wants to happen in SuperCoach.
And I think that's exactly the purpose of this. Like, as an avid video game player, I kind of love the dev updates where the team behind the game that you play really gets to explain what's going on and why they're making those decisions. And often it's exactly what you're talking about. It's not that we don't want to do it. It's just that there's some limitation, or we're trading off different priorities. So I love being able to bring that transparency to those that are really into the game and want to learn a little bit more about the mechanics. And I can't wait until maybe next year when we're talking about some of these suggestions and going through what is a serious contender to be added and what is something that maybe you'd love to do but just can't be added right now. But thank you so much for your time, Al.
No worries. Thanks, JD. Thanks for jumping on. And yeah, we might be in touch again over the preseason and during the year. So yeah, encourage everyone go and check out JD's work. So this Fantasy Take TV is sort of the main channel, I guess, which you do with George and Eno, and then you've got your own channel as well. So give that a quick plug.
Yeah. So you can find me, Jackson Davies, my name. That's my handle at Twitter. It's just my name. And I think if you search that with SuperCoach, you can find me on YouTube or at JDavy. And then, as Al mentioned, I'm part of the Fantasy Take TV team, which is primarily run out of George's channel. Otherwise, you can find our podcast on the other platforms like Spotify and Apple, and I'm sure others that George goes to the effort of actually uploading it to. I'm not very good at that stuff. But yeah, you can find those places. If you want to chat and come say hi, then yeah, find me at YouTube, find me at Twitter, and looking forward to the year ahead.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I should tell everybody to go to supercoach.com.au, get in and create an account if you haven't already got one, obviously, and start picking a team. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.